This is the Bounce Back Better program, which is a resilience training program. And there's 16 modules that we're going to go through during this meetup. The reason it's important, either if you're coming from the photography meetup or if from the career transition meetup, resilience is so key to our success when it comes to our careers and our life in general, because life is about ups and downs. And the key is to be able to bounce back when things don't go exactly according to plan. And let's be honest, they never really do go perfectly. So learning to take failure as an opportunity for growth is the key. And so in these 16 modules, we're going to talk about mental, emotional, physical, and social/spiritual resilience. And the first four, so we're on the second one, the first four, it will be kind of level one, so it's the scholar level. And then the next four and the next four and the next four all kind of build on what we've been doing. That said, you can come in at any time and you'll get plenty out of it if you jump in the middle. But you will start to notice how each one of these builds on each other and how they come at resilience from a different perspective and give you skills, because resilience is a skill that you can use in your everyday life. So today we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence and how we can befriend negativity and not see it as something bad, and prioritize positivity. So how do we use positive emotions to enrich our lives and to be more resilient? So I'll share my screen. Oh, again, and if you're just joining us, if you have the video capability, I would encourage you to use it so that we're all in the room together. We're all kind of looking at each other. We get to know each other. It's a little bit more intimate, a little bit more like real life, and it draws your attention a little bit more. I know these days it's easy to get pulled in many different directions, and as you'll see, when it comes to prioritizing positivity, one of the things that we want to do is to really savor the opportunities that we have. And hopefully this is a good opportunity to learn a little bit about your emotions. So I encourage you to be fully present. And let's see, I'm just going to click a couple of things here to see if we can get everyone to join us. And okay, great. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and we're also going to do some various exercises. So if you have a pen and paper, that'd be great. If you don't, that's okay. But the more engaged you are, of course, the more you get out. The more you put in, the more you get out. So can you all see my screen? Give me a thumbs up or a nod or something like that.
Yes, I can see it.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so Bounce Back Better system, emotional intelligence. This is 1.2, which is level 1, which is a scholar level, and skill 2, so 1.2, and it's an emotional skill. Last time we did a mental skill, and it was all about growth mindset. So I'm going to do a really quick review of what we did last time, just to get you up to speed. And so growth mindset is, well, you know what, let's just do the agenda first, and then I'll get into the review. So what are we going to do today? First, we're going to review. We're going to talk about what is actually emotional intelligence. It's something that gets thrown around a lot, but what does it really mean? What does the science say? What does the research say? And how can we use it? We're going to get into this model of personal mastery, which is the Flourishing Center's model. That's where I studied. And it's the self-awareness, compassion, and care model that is very useful. And we're going to talk about the evolutionary role of emotions, what has happened in history and why our brain is wired a certain way, and about building positivity and decreasing negativity. So let's review. All right, so basic points. Resilience is about, let me minimize this thing here so I can actually see. Okay, resilience is about being able to bounce back and keep moving. We're all born with resilience. We all have resilience as human beings because we are one of the few surviving species from millions of years ago, or thousands of years ago, and we've evolved for millions of years to be resilient. Our bodies and our minds are used to surviving difficult circumstances. We are already resilient by nature. The key is being able to harness that resilience and use it the way we want to. The idea of the growth mindset is a prerequisite for resilience. In other words, and we'll touch on that a little bit as we get into this, but the idea of basically taking a learner path versus a judger path, and noticing that we have a choice in every moment to see things as opportunities for learning as opposed to judgments on our identity. And redirecting, shifting gears from that judger path to a learner path is a choice that we have. And the more we do it, the more it kind of builds on itself. And we'll talk about the spirals that emotions create. So basically, emotions and the ability to regulate them is what makes us uniquely human. We have that cognition, that rational brain that, my dog Luna has only a little bit of. She can kind of make a distinction between I'm supposed to eat this treat now or not because this is, what I'm told and what I'm not. A little bit of rationalizing, but not very much. We have a much broader consciousness and an ability that makes us uniquely human. The other thing that we're going to talk about is how all emotions serve a function, and our lives are better, we flourish when our experience of positive emotions is greater than our experience of negative emotions. And we'll talk about a ratio that exists out there too. So what's good about this? Understanding your emotions and knowing how to work with them will make you healthier, more resilient, and give you greater self-efficacy. In other words, the ability or the belief that the things that you want to do are actually possible, that you believe that your efforts will bear fruit. So that's the idea of self-efficacy, which is sort of an umbrella term under which self-confidence and self-esteem and all these other self-words are sort of. Self-efficacy is a crucial one. And emotions are fluid and dynamic states. They change, they mean different things to different people, we experience them differently. And they're emotions, they're chemical bursts, and they're things that happen to our brain. Happiness is not a state forever, it's an emotion. It goes, it's a spike, you feel it, and something happens to your body. And that's a dynamic situation that we're talking about. They're not fixed. Right? So something that you can kind of take away with you as an action, that the 3 N's, which we'll talk about: noticing, naming, and working with emotions, and navigating your emotions. Prioritizing positivity by actively building those positive emotions, and how to build emotions as a muscle, like taking your brain to the gym. So the definition of emotional intelligence. All right, well, Google says it's the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. That's quite a mouthful. Basically, what that means is to manage your emotions well and other people's emotions well. So to be able to recognize in other people their emotions, to be able to recognize in your own body what's happening to you, and to be able to use it whenever you want to, in the way you want to, so that you can show up in the world the way you want to. It's also known as EI or EQ, so emotional intelligence or emotional quotient, as opposed to IQ. And I know there's a lot more talk these days about the importance of EQ in the workplace and in parenting and in pretty much everything. So we'll talk about what does that actually mean in practice. One thing we know from research, so according to Bradbury and Graves in their Emotional Intelligence 2.0, we know that 90% of top performers have higher EQ than their colleagues. That's huge. So take that in for a second. Those who are successful have a higher EQ. We'll kind of feel that out a little later. EQ is responsible for 58% of your job performance. So half of your job performance might be, technical skills and experience and just having a razor sharp, ability to do math or something like that. And more than half is EQ, your ability to manage yours and others' emotions. Plus you make more money if you have higher EQ. according to research. So that's always a bonus. We all want to do that. So in the book, The Resilience Factor, which I have here somewhere, here it is. There it is. Rivish and Chatté have 7 factors. It's an amazing book. It's not too like academic or anything. I think it's very accessible. We're going to focus on this top one of emotional regulation. Whoops. Can you guys see if I highlight? Yeah. Okay. So emotional regulation is what we're going to focus on. So that ability to manage. It's also related to a lot of the other factors. Excellent book, by the way. So there are some of the leading researchers in resilience, and they talk about how important emotional regulation is. It's number one in these factors in terms of being able to bounce back better in your life. I mentioned the 3 N's: noticing, naming, and navigating your emotions. It's important for us to remember that it's our emotions that can make us resilient. They do make us resilient. We're already pre-programmed to be resilient. If you break a bone, when it grows back stronger. So we're physically programmed to be resilient. When something happens to you that's bad, you learn from the experience and you try not to do it again. So you know that the car is coming down the road. If you had your foot run over, you learn that you're not supposed to stand in the street so that you don't get run over, right? So we're programmed for survival. And that comes with positive things and negative things. Actually, that's the wrong word to use. I'd say that it comes with good things and bad things. Very different concepts. So what happens when you don't have emotional regulation? What happens when you can't manage your emotions well? Think about that. If you have worry, for example, if you're worried as an emotion in a short period of time, it might be telling you something. If you get stuck in that worry, it can become chronic anxiety. You can be angry. Having anger is a very useful emotion, right? It's a negative emotion, but it's useful. But if you get stuck in it, it can turn to rage and kind of become uncontrollable. The same with sadness. Sadness is an emotion that's common to all humans. You get laid off from your job and you're sad about that. It makes sense. But if you get stuck in that sadness and you can't bounce back more readily, right, after you process that sadness, then it can lead to depression, right? And of course, depression is also a clinical thing, so we're not going to go too far into that. But there are ways of expediting that digestion process. And that's really what we want to do, because health is basically digesting things properly without getting stuck, right? So you can think of it as what this weird cartoon is doing. But you want to process your emotions, right? It's not these things are good and these things are bad, and I want to avoid the bad emotions and only have good emotions. First of all, that's not realistic. And if you avoid them, you're still having them, you're just not processing them properly. They're still happening, whether you're aware of them or not, whether you choose to do something with them or not, you're going through the emotions. Every human does, unless you're, a sociopath, which is, some people are. And what we really want to do ultimately is to create a balance, right? So life is like riding a bicycle, as Albert Einstein said. To keep moving, to keep your balance, you have to keep moving, right? So you have to work through the emotions. And the more you learn how to do that, the easier it is to cope with them and to recognize what happens when they show up. So, in this study of positive psychology, often you think, oh, positive psychology, it's just, happy all the time and, a bunch of people on drugs who are just smiling all the time. But that's not the case. It's not a happyology. Positive psychology is the study of what makes life worth living, essentially. And in the past, traditional psychology looked more at, what's wrong with us. And positive psychology looks at the other side of the spectrum. So in order to do that, we also have to be able to understand the negative, right? It's not only choosing the positive and denying ourselves the negative. All of the emotions are useful, but what can we do to make our lives better, essentially? And that's what positive psychology studies. Um, that's what these slides are. What people think we do is, uh, positive emotions are good, negative emotions are bad. What we really do is that we want to increase positivity and work with negativity, or decrease positivity, decrease negativity, and have a better ratio of positive to negative, because it makes our lives better. But that doesn't mean negativity goes away or that it's bad. And we don't have to label it as good or bad. We just have to know what to do with it. Because part of being human is experiencing this vast array of emotions. It's who we are. You're born and you're human and you're going to experience all these things. And if you can't appreciate them, then there's going to be a lot of self-criticism. There's going to be a lot of stuckness. And when a situation doesn't go well, it's more difficult to cope with, right? So the gist of all of this, the thing to take away, is that emotions aren't problematic. They only become problematic when you don't know how to work with them. So can anybody relate to that? Anyone? I know I have definitely gotten stuck in emotions. And that takes us to this model, right? This idea of, the model of personal mastery. So everything we're talking about, we begin with self-awareness, right? We begin with this knowledge of what's happening to me, right? What am I experiencing right now? What's going on? And not denying ourselves one or the other. I'm, experiencing anger, or I'm experiencing curiosity, whatever it is. And as you become more self-aware and you understand what these emotions actually mean, then you can allow yourself more space to be compassionate to yourself. And I don't mean self-compassion in this kind of woo-woo sort of, purple auras or something. I mean, when you feel a certain way, it's okay, it's human, it's normal, right? And it's all right to feel whatever you feel, rather than the tendency of, for example, if you said something inappropriate to, in front of a group of people, and they all kind of looked at you and they were like, what? Like you told an off-color joke or something. And then you feel bad about it. And then you're like, wait a second, I shouldn't feel bad about it. I am who I am. And then you kind of feel guilty about yourself feeling bad about it. And then it becomes these like layers of judgment on top of each other, as opposed to going, yeah, I'm feeling embarrassed right now, and that's okay, because that's the normal response to what's happening right now. You can kind of process that and go, all right, well, here's what I'm going to learn from that, which is the self-care part, right? How are you going to use that information to take some sort of action, right? To take care of yourself, to go, all right, next time I'm going to change it this way, or, use that to then create more self-awareness, right? And it's something that stacks. So let's do an exercise. What emotions are you experiencing right now? Let's just take 1 minute to sit back and think, what emotions am I experiencing? And what do those emotions physically feel like? When you start to ponder this, your mind goes to, oh, well, what's my vocabulary for emotions? And most of us have a much stronger vocabulary in negativity than in positivity. So we're going to do this exercise. If you have a sheet of paper, I asked you, how are you feeling? Right? Now let's list all of the emotions that you can think of, not necessarily what you're feeling, but 3 minutes. I'm going to set a timer. All right, I'll just look at the clock here. And we'll do like a little friendly competition and see who gets the most emotions listed. Is everybody ready? You guys have a sheet of paper, pen, paper, something to write with? Okay? List as many emotions as you can. All right. Ready, go. Mm. 15 more seconds. Okay. All right, let's stop right there. No cheating. Everybody put your pens down. It's like the British Bake Off, the British baking show. Okay, so now think about, okay, so let's skip to this because we have to go through a lot. Circle the positive emotion words and count them. Circle negative emotion words and then count them. Let's see what we come up with. How many positives and how many negatives?
Hipusi sama kayo. Ityaspa alaap
Okay, I'm
shel
gonna mute
abye. Wow, kaya ratsa lorito ta. Tungatan that's mumakanahon.
Oh boy. Sorry, I unmuted everybody. Okay, what did you guys come up with? How many positives, how many negatives? I'll unmute everybody.
I had, this is Lydia, I had 13 negatives and 7 positives.
13 negatives, 7 positives. All right, who else? Revi.
I had 5 positives and 3 negatives.
Okay.
Hi, this is Shelley. I had 7 negatives and 5 positives.
Uh-huh. All right.
Hi, Ganesh here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I had 16 positives and I had 23 total reactions, but I have 16 positives. Rest are negative.
So one more time, positive, negative.
Okay. 16 positives and 8 negatives.
Oh, okay. Wow. Anyone else?
Okay,
Joe.
I have 2 negatives and 11 positive, I think, but 3 of those 11 seems to be the so-so. I mean, it might be negative at some point
Kind of in the
in
middle.
time, but
Yeah.
I'm counting
Ooh,
it as positive.
and I hear a little bit of judgment of your own judgment of that particular situation. So what we're getting at here, and this seems to be a particularly positive group, is that the research shows essentially that we have a lot more words for negativity than we have for positivity. It's typical. See, I'm trying to mute everybody just so we have. If you guys don't mind muting yourself, I can't seem to, so that if there's background noise and that kind of thing. Yeah, there should be a button on your bar that says mute. Thank you. Okay, so we have a negativity bias, and we're going to talk a little bit about negativity bias. Still here a little bit of, okay, I think we're good. It's like family dinner time or something. Okay, so emotional awareness means knowing when feelings are present in ourselves and others. Talking about awareness of emotion, by the way. It's closely related to emotional literacy, which means being able to label feelings with specific feeling words. And that's kind of the basic idea. And at its highest level, it means being able to predict feelings in advance. So you you have this awareness where you can read a situation and you know what emotions will come out of it. So if you think about what it's like to not have those words, right? It can be frustrating. If you think about a teenager, right? If you ask a teenager, the typical things like, so, how's your day? How did it go? I don't know. It's fine, I guess. How'd you feel about, the party? It was cool. Yeah, these kind of a limited amount of vocabulary, right? Typically. But if you actually want to express yourself and you want to be able to appreciate a situation or assess it properly, you have to have the appropriate vocabulary for it. And so you can develop that emotional vocabulary. And the more you have awareness of your emotions, the more you kind of pay attention to what's going on with me, the more you can access words for positivity. I can't remember I remember that in the English, something about how the English language has many thousand more words for negative situations than for positive. I'll have to find that for you guys. Okay. So if you want, we're not going to do this together, but go to positivityratio.com, and that's, I believe, from Barbara Fredrickson, who we'll talk a little bit about. She's one of the leading researchers on positive psychology. She has a great website, and this can kind of give you your positivity ratio, essentially. Looks like that. And this is another interesting exercise that we're not going to do, but you can, try to identify how things feel in your body, like when you're experiencing emotion. Is it in your head? Is it in your chest? Is it in your arms? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it, how would you describe it? What color is it? And all of this can kind of help you develop that awareness. So let's get into the evolutionary role of emotions. Why do we feel the things we feel? Because our ancestors developed a certain way, and for the most part, it was to keep us alive. So for millions of years, we had the core of our brain, and everybody go like this. Look at your fist, right? If you do this, can everyone see me? I know it's kind of hard to see everybody at the same time. So if you're not on video, in any case, you kind of make a fist, right? So that represents the core of your brain. There's this kind of emotional part in the middle, right? And that's what we call the paleo-mammalian. It's very complex, and I'm not a neuroscientist, but the basic is that this is your emotional core, right? And then you have your brain stem, and this part, which is sort of the lizard brain. And sometimes those two things are confused, but the emotional brain is the one that generates all of these chemicals that give you these feelings. Lizards don't actually experience that. They have fight, flight, freeze instincts that keep them alive, but they're not really experiencing emotions the way that mammals are. And then on top of that, so if you have the fist, so there's the core, and then there's the lizard brain, right? And then on top of that is this kind of the neocortex, right? And that's what has evolved to make us uniquely human. Again, my dog Luna has some of it, but not a whole lot, right? So other animals, and I say other animals because we are very much animals, they possess some of this, but they can't rationalize and access this as much, and that's why they're so much more about their emotions, their reactions, how they it's much more primitive. So that lizard brain, which is you can call it the lizard brain, versus the modern man brain, modern woman brain, which is much more developed and sophisticated and makes us so interesting and empathetic and rational and all those beautiful things. So it's important to note why these things are different, right? They speak basically different languages. The emotional core of our brain exists because it kept us alive for a very long time. It was super important that you noticed when something bad was happening. Your brain goes, that's bad. I'm going to give you a negative emotion in your body. And you're going to go, okay, I have to stay away from that because it's going to keep me alive. Basically, you hear a stick in the distance crack, you know that there might be a predator, so you run away. So they keep us alive, and they're very useful. The difference is that today we don't have the same kind of threats that we used to, so they're not useful in the same way, which gives us this problem because we still have the same core emotional brain that our ancestors did thousands and thousands of years ago, but now we're in a very different place where we don't need it in the same way that they did. Our lives aren't threatened in the way that, let's say those of us who are very privileged, which is the majority of humanity, I'd say, is not in the kind of threat situation that our ancestors were in. So they're very useful. I've kind of touched on that your brain produces these chemicals, that it's easy for that emotional core of your brain to hijack everything because it's a very powerful and primitive instinct that happens. It's also useful, so we have to learn how to appreciate it. We have to go, okay, this is happening. That's that compassion component. My brain is my ancient paleo-mammalian brain is shooting off chemicals, and it's telling me something, and I have to thank it. Like, that is a good thing. I'm happy that I have this brain to keep me alive. But maybe I don't really need that right now. Maybe that's not useful for me. So I'm going to process whatever information it's telling me. And either, if you're really nervous, does that mean it's time to run away because you're going to get killed? Well, it's probably not that. What does it really mean to me? And you can use it. And then kind of shift gears in the direction that you want. So let's go a little bit into self-compassion. We'll do some exercise a little bit further down. So we've talked about self-compassion in that model. The thing is, without self-compassion, we tend to criticize ourselves. You have these scenarios like, I should know better, or I'm a terrible blank. I didn't walk my dog for 8 hours because I was out all day or something. And then I'm like, I'm a terrible blank, right? And you don't speak to yourself compassionately. We all have this tendency to speak to ourselves and to judge ourselves without really looking deeper at what's going on with the emotion that we're experiencing. And there's a reason for that, which we will explain. So Dr. Kristen Neff, she wrote this book, Self-Compassion. She's a leading researcher on self-compassion. You can watch her TED Talk. She's amazing. And she has taught us that there are these 3 components of self-compassion. So treating yourself with kindness, which is what we've really been getting into, the idea that if you're kind to yourself, you change the questions you're asking yourself, you ask useful questions of, do I need this emotion? What does it mean to me? How can I use this? What is my brain really telling me right now? And it's okay for me to be experiencing whatever emotion I'm experiencing, so that you don't get stuck. So sharing a common humanity, in other words, being able to recognize emotions in others, right? And that we all experience this stuff. We all experience this stuff. It isn't, just you. You're not alone going through whatever emotion you're experiencing. And it's easy to feel isolated when you have a strong negative emotion. Building mindfulness is a way to help you recognize and have more self-awareness. So mindfulness is basically creating a space between the stimulus and the response. It's going, oh, I'm recognizing what's happening right now. It's, so if somebody, if your wife yells at you, instead of getting defensive right away, you have a little bit of a space. You go, all right, what's going on here inside my head? What are my emotions telling me? And being able to respond and not react. So why is it we do this to ourselves? Why do we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders? Why do we flagellate ourselves? Why do we make ourselves feel guilty for feeling guilty? Why do we have this tendency? Well, we have well, that's not it. Oh no, yeah, okay. So why do we do that? Because we think that we think we need it. We think that if we're like really hard on ourselves, that's going to be motivating. That somehow like beating yourself up is useful, and that's that's kind of this common old-fashioned approach. And the fact is, it's not. Research shows that criticism actually undermines motivation. When you beat yourself up, and we'll kind of explain how that works. When you beat yourself up, you are less likely to do the thing that you want to be doing. So let's say going to the gym. You want to go to the gym, so you tell yourself, I'm so fat and I'm so lazy. Get off your ass, and that kind of critical tone. You're going to be less likely to want to go to the gym, and you're going to be more likely to want to eat cookies, right? And self-soothe. Instead of understanding what your resistance is to a particular emotion of not wanting to go to the gym, and talking to yourself in a more compassionate way so that you can build the positive response to wanting to go to the gym. That's much more motivating when you feel good about doing something than when you feel bad about it, right? It's kind of common sense. Suggestion to watch her TED Talk. So positive psychology did something kind of revolutionary, which was to ask what good are positive emotions. Traditionally, we looked at, psychology looked at what good are negative emotions. In other words, what's the purpose of negative emotions? Why do we have them, and what do they mean about us? But it took a really long time for us to start asking what good are positive emotions. It seems like kind of an obvious thing to like, what good are positive emotions? Like, aren't they just good, right? But Dr. Barbara Fredrickson is the hero who started asking this question. She published a paper called What Good Are Positive Emotions? She did a lot of research. She continues to do a lot of research. You can find her on YouTube also doing lectures. And so what we can learn from her is, for example, negative emotions have a particular purpose. So like when I'm angry, I want to blank. Anybody? When I'm angry, I want to what? Oh, and yeah, you know what? We have a chat box also, which we can use for responses, if I can find it anywhere. Here we go. Okay, yeah, let's just use the chat box. So when I'm angry, I want to what? What is your action when you're angry? Okay. When I'm angry, I want to use bad language. Yeah. Right. What else? When I'm blank, I want to blank. Give me another negative emotion. What's another negative emotion? Maybe sad? When I'm angry, I want to scream. Yeah. When I'm sad, I want to blank. What do you want to do when you're sad? Nice. Cry, eat. So different ways of expressing sadness. Yeah. Embarrassed, escape. Yeah, nice, Revi. So these negative emotions each have a particular purpose. What about positive emotions? Don't they have a place in our experience of the world other than just like happy, I want to be happy, right? There's so much more to it. So when we were talking about the different negative emotions. So here's a chart that shows the thought that you have, the feeling it's associated with, and the action associated with it. So when you're sad, you mourn. So you can cry, you can eat, whatever it is, but it's a form of mourning. That's the sort of primitive response, right? And it's because you feel or you think that you have lost something important. That's what sadness is. It's the sense that I've lost something important to me. When you're angry, it's because you've been violated, you've been harmed, and you fight back. You scream, you say bad words, you know, something like that, you fight back. And if you can think about, that as a caveman, cavewoman, what use was anger? What purpose did it serve? If somebody attacks you, you fight back. So your brain is telling you, defend yourself. Anxiety, for example, something bad is going to happen. I'm worried about something terrible happening. That, saber-toothed tiger is going to attack me. I'm going to run away because you're worried that something bad is going to happen. And if you take humanity out of that equation of, we're all going to die because of these immediate impending threats to our life, it's just not as useful as it used to be, right? And so now we worry about things like, is my boss going to yell at me? Am I going to screw up this workshop? Am I going to say the wrong thing and stumble over my words? I'm so worried about it. Like my brain is telling me, you're going to die. You're going to mess up this workshop, and therefore you're going to die. That's not the case, unless any of you are going to come after me. I don't think that's the case, hopefully. Guilt, I caused harm. Embarrassment, I've lost people's positive regard. I've screwed up. And so you retreat, you kind of, hide. And that had an evolutionary purpose, because if you retreat and you're in a community, you're going to show other people that something's wrong, and it's our natural response to want to stay in a community. So that was useful. But now we're isolated all the time, and we don't get that as much. And embarrassment can turn into something much more severe. So positive emotions, different from negative emotions, they're not quite as clear. They're not, you're angry, so you're going to fight back. Positive emotions are a little bit more exploratory, right? And they kind of mean slightly different things to everybody else. And one thing we know from Barbara Fredrickson's research is that positive emotions broaden our mind, our ability to think more creatively and openly, and negative emotions narrow us. So let's think of an example. Does anybody have an example of how a negative emotion narrows your focus and a positive emotion broadens your focus? Type it into the chat box if you can think of one. Negative emotion narrows. This is a toughie. So when you experience curiosity, right, what happens? Clint, negative emotions narrows focus by not allowing optimism. Negative emotions hold you back from experiencing life. Yes, right? So if you think about a positive emotion like curiosity, right? What happens to you? What happens to your brain when you have that experience of curiosity? You want to explore. You want to connect to other people. You want to understand others. You want to, get closer to things, right? It's this kind of inclusive and connected and heightened positive state, and it feels good. Positivity brings adventure, absolutely, right? You want to go out into the world, right? And negativity, on the other hand, is usually a threat response, right? So if you're getting chased by the saber-toothed tiger, you focus on that threat, because if you don't, it'll kill you. So you have to focus specifically on that. So that's very useful, right? It's good to know how positive emotions can affect you and how negative emotions can affect you. and then you can kind of harness that. What we know also is that emotions create spirals, like upward spiral or downward spirals. So if you're sad about something, then you don't go out, you don't leave your house. And if you don't leave your house, then you feel lonely. And if you feel lonely, you don't call anybody. If you don't call anybody, you go into a depression, right? So it's this kind of downward spiral. Similarly, positive emotions create upward spirals. So if you're, taking curiosity as an example, you are curious about how to make bread, because my wife and I were making bread. She was making bread. I was like, not, whatever. Anyway, curiosity about something. So you go toward it, and then you go, oh, this is interesting. And then you try it out. You like make your first loaf of bread, and, either it goes well or it doesn't, but you learn something. And then that experience of learning something and eating it and feeling good about it creates more positive emotions, and it reinforces itself. So this is the judger path and learner path thing that we talked about in the last session. And basically, it's the questions that you ask yourself. And you know that if you go down this judger path, right, in this kind of downward spiral, you ask, who can I blame? What's wrong with me? And then you end up kind of stuck in this pit of negativity, as opposed to asking yourself questions that are more, thoughtful and solutions oriented and, open-ended. So what's going on? What do I want? What do I need? What can I learn? What's possible here? What are my choices? So that's kind of building on that upward spiral. And if you're interested in this, Marilee Adams wrote the book, Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. You can find it on Amazon, and she's on YouTube also. Amazing researcher. And as we've said, negative emotions have upsides too. Also another book worth reading, The Upside of Your Dark Side. So there's good things about having negative emotions. It doesn't mean that negative emotions are bad and positive emotions are good. They're just useful for different reasons at different times, and we can't exist as humans without both of them. The problem is when we get stuck in an emotion and we don't know how to process it properly. And again, awareness, compassion, care. So the key is knowing when you need negative emotions and when you need positive emotions, and be able to induce the state when you want it to show up in the world the way you want to, when you want to. It's very easy to, well, let's see. I'll just follow the slide. So negative emotions sap your energy, and positive emotions give you energy. So even though a negative emotion might feel like pretty energizing in the moment, like you feel angry and you respond and you react, and that's like, yeah, and you get this adrenaline rush or whatever it is. Or there's something like that kind of feels good about retreating and being sad. There's like something that is like self-indulgent about it. Like it kind of feels good sometimes. But anyway, that also saps your energy, even though it might kind of feel good in the moment. And positive emotions, on the other hand, tend to give you more energy. And if you think about your energy on a daily basis, you have basically what we call psychological capital. You have this piggy bank, this reserve of energy, like a battery or a piggy bank, every day, and you can add to it or subtract to it. Of course, at the end of the day, ideally, right, we spend the energy, we have to sleep and recharge so that we have energy the next day. But you can also think about the emotions that you experience throughout the day as adding or subtracting to that experience. So if you think about a day where you were fully, engaged with friends and everything went well and you had a great time and you were laughing and sharing and creative and curious and all of these kinds of emotions, you're going to have an extended amount of energy throughout the day because you've been sort of depositing in your bank account, as opposed to a day where it's full of stress and you're miserable and it's gross outside and you feel gloomy and all of those things. You're not going to have a lot of energy. It's going to quickly deplete you. So, but there's more to that, and it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. We have a negativity bias, which we'll talk about in a second, which means that we tend toward that that negative, survival state in that emotional core brain, that fist, right? So we withdraw. In other words, we take out a lot more energy when we have negative experiences, emotions, versus positive. So you have to have a higher ratio of positive emotions in order to counter the negative. Barbara Fredrickson talks about that a lot. You should check out her stuff. So here's a little map of how this works. Positive emotions broaden you, right? So you have novel thoughts, activities, relationships improved, which leads to building enduring personal resources. You connect more to people, you build resilience, you improve your skills, or as we were talking about bread making, so you get better at it. So that leads to a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. And of course, that perpetuates and gives you a broader sense of positive emotions, and you can help yourself do that. If you ever, know people who are just like really happy and, very positive people, it's because of this. It's because they have trained their mental muscles to utilize that positive upward spiral that is, accessible to all of us, essentially. So a little bit about negativity bias. Take a look at this review, right? So let's say it's a movie review. Let's say it's your book review, well, I guess this is a movie review. Take a look at it. It says it was well written, funny, informative, uplifting, but it ran a little long. Where does your mind go when you read this? Well, the natural response is to look at it ran a little long. Even though they wrote 1, 2, 3, 4 positive things about it, your brain goes straight to the negative. And I'm curious who has experienced something like this at work, where you get a lot of positive feedback. You get a presentation and everything went well, but there was this one thing that you should have done differently that it didn't. You know what I'm saying? Raise your hand if you've ever had an experience like that. Yeah, we all have, it's normal. So we can train ourselves to work with that and understand that it's the natural response that we have. So when you know that it's your brain doing this because it's a, normal response to negative stimuli and that it has a lot more weight than positive emotions, you can be a little bit more compassionate about it and go, all right, somebody gave me a little bit of negative feedback. I realize that my response to that feels like blown out of proportion. Why am I so upset about something so small compared to all of the good things? That's normal. That's perfectly normal. And therefore you can go, all right, it makes sense that I'm upset right now. I'm not going to beat myself up for being upset that I got a little bit of negative feedback, right? Makes sense. By the way, if none of this makes sense, if you have questions, please put it into the chat box. I'm happy to try to. Lydia, the hand raised. Lydia, did you have a question? Where's Lydia?
No, I was commenting. You had said, raise your hand if you've ever experienced that. I don't have the video, so I just typed in hand raised.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so you too.
Hi.
Shelly.
Yes, I have a question, and let me know if it's probably in the latter half of the slides, but if these negative emotions are innate, where you can hear 98% of positivity and feedback, let's say in a professional environment, but you're focusing on that 2% because you want to improve and you want to be better. If it's innate and it's almost like a natural instinct, is there any way to adjust that, or is it just constantly like talking to yourself and reversing that kind of thought, maybe in some form of meditation where you're trying to clear your mind? Is it a similar process where the negative thoughts are flowing in and you have to you have to then push in the positive thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that you don't want to get stuck forever in that cycle of, oh, well, this is my brain and I'm always doomed to have this negative emotion and experience, something like that. Yes?
Yes.
You want to have tools to be able to counter that so you don't have to live with that your whole damn life, right? Yeah. Well, yes and no, right? So we are who we are, and we have the instincts that we have, but our brain is malleable, right? It's not fixed. It's not a bone. Well, actually, bones are too, but it isn't something that stays the same way forever. Your brain is constantly moving. It's like this weird spaghetti thing. Not that crazy, but if you let's say take a reading of your brain with an EEG machine right now, it might look a certain way. Let's say that you become a master mindfulness meditator, like let's talk extreme here, and then you measure your brain, it's going to look very different than it used to because it's changed, right? In the same way that you can go to the gym and strengthen your muscles, you can do that with your brain as well. So you can absolutely strengthen this kind of stuff. And yeah, we are going to talk a little bit more about that. So it's possible. There's hope. All right. And so a little bit more about negativity bias, not to bog you guys down too much with this like doom and gloom, but the reality is that negativity is stronger. So for example, there's this amazing study about lottery winners, and that, you know, if you just look up study about lottery winners on the internet, you'll probably find it. But basically what happens is if you win money, you spike, you get really happy, but then you normalize your life, you kind of get used to what's going on, and then you go back to experiencing the same kinds of emotions that you were before you won the lottery, because you go back to being your normal self. And then you have more worries. So actually, people who win the lottery tend to be less happy than when they didn't have the lottery winnings. It's amazing. So you think, oh, I just want to win the lottery, my life will be so much better. Studies show that that's not true. It could be true, right? If you know how to savor and really, you know, use that $1 billion in a way that is going to enrich your life, but it's very difficult. Negativity has more weight than positivity. So losing, well, that was a different idea, but this idea, losing money versus winning money. Losing money hurts more than winning money feels good, if that makes sense. So if losing money, you know, has a weight of 5, winning money, or -5, winning money has a positive of 3 or something like that. Do you understand what I'm saying? The same thing with gaining a friend, losing a friend. Feels great to gain a friend, but it doesn't feel as good to gain a friend as it hurts to lose a friend, right? Proportionally. Same thing with receiving praise and criticism. We were just talking about that, Shelley. So criticism is much stronger than praise. So if you ever hear that, like that feedback style where people tell you something good, and then they tell you something bad, and then they tell you something good, it's what they call a shit sandwich, because you're still eating shit, right? Even if it's smushed between 2 cookies or whatever it is, you still focus on the negative, right? So it's a matter of being able to handle that feedback, that negativity in the right way. And the more you can manage your own emotions and understand where other people's emotions are coming from, the better that you can cope with that kind of stuff and bounce back more quickly. And, you know, make that switch from judger to learner. Somebody's giving me negative feedback. What do I use? What don't I use? What can I learn from this? What possibilities are there? As opposed to, I'm stupid, I'm the worst, I'm a failure, these kind of negative identity labels, right? So evolutionarily, missing the negative was life-threatening, but missing the positive was not, right? If you if you had a negative, it's stronger for a reason, right? It's important to recognize this. If you had a negative emotion, like of fear or something, and you didn't pay attention to it, then you might get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. But if you were like excited or I don't know, give me a positive emotion, and you didn't really catch it, it wasn't life-threatening. So in other words, your brain didn't learn to prioritize it because it wasn't life-threatening. It's all about survival, right? In other words, if you're able to recognize this, that this is how your brain works, this is the normal tendency, this is why I'm responding and why my body is telling me a certain emotion, you can have that self-awareness, and then it's okay to experience this. Whatever I'm experiencing right now, it's okay and it's normal, and this is how I'm programmed. What am I going to do with that information? Take care of myself, right? Whatever that means. What do I need right now? I need to, go for a jog or something, or I need to remove myself, gather my thoughts. If you're really angry, okay, so what do I really need right now? Give yourself that opportunity. So this is, something you can jot down. In what ways have you seen the negativity bias at play in your life? Shelley gave us a good example. If anybody else has examples of negativity bias, please enter them into the chat box. I'd love to hear from you. When do you trend toward negativity? When have you over-focused on the negativity because of your paleo-mammalian emotional core and your basal ganglia and other parts of your brain? Anyone? I know you have these experiences because I know you're all human. I think. Do you have any aliens with us? It's okay if you don't want to share. Okay. So we have this awareness, right? Why is that important? Because it gives us the opportunity to improve. It gives us the opportunity to prioritize positivity. So research shows that, I was talking about the lottery winnings, for example, that the pursuit of happiness doesn't actually make you happy. Or this idea that at some point in my life, this amazing big thing is going to happen and then I'm going to be happy. So it's that idea of I'll be happy later. Like at some point it's going to happen. That gap between where you're at and your expectations can actually decrease happiness. I know that our Declaration of Independence or Constitution, or where does it say that we have the right to pursue happiness? I'm probably seeming really stupid right now for saying that. Judgment. Anyway, right? That pursuit of happiness doesn't make us happy. What does make us happy is experiencing positive emotions. And I mean happy isn't like life satisfaction. I mean bigger happy, bigger scale happy, not like the small emotion of that. So what does make you more broadly happy and more life satisfaction is habitually taking into account your potential happiness when making decisions about how to organize your everyday life. So if you have a dog, you prioritize the positive experience of petting your dog, right? And you sit there with your dog and you go, this is amazing. I'm going to allow myself to feel good about it. And you schedule things like that throughout the day. So if you have a stressful day, but you have a few moments where you can really savor what's going on, you can step back. Mindfulness is a really important tool for that, because you're able to kind of remove yourself for just a second and go, oh, I have a choice right now. I can savor the positive experience. So prioritizing positivity and increasing the ratio of positive to negative emotions is how research shows you gain a bigger sense of life satisfaction. And that, Shelley, is how you train your emotional muscles. That is how you strengthen your ability to induce positive emotions, to use positive emotions when you want them. So let's do this. Let's do this flip it exercise. How much time do we have? Okay, let's do this flip it exercise. Okay. What we need to do is turn our brains from normally thinking negative into positive, right? That's that opportunity that we always have. And one way of doing it is when you have something that you don't want, it's kind of something you're avoiding, and you can turn that into, you can flip it like into a positive. So give me some examples. I'm going to unmute you guys. If I can figure out how to do that.
שהוא מהופנט.
עייף, זה 28.
Okay, there's somebody talking.
לפי הישיבה.
I hear, okay, is it Shimon? Because I hear Hebrew. Yes, nailed it. Okay. All right. Ganesh, are you there? Can anybody else? Are you guys unmuted?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you guys. All right, cool. Ganesh, I think you just muted yourself if you did that intentionally, just to let you know. Okay, so what are some things that you don't want? Give me some examples. Things you want to try to avoid in your life at the moment.
I have some bills I've been avoiding paying.
Okay. All right. So bills you are avoiding paying. How can you flip that into the positive, into the affirmative? So it's not, I don't want to pay these bills. It's what?
Once I pay them, I will be, more free to move forward.
Right. So it's not, I don't want to pay these bills. It's, I want to be free and move forward. Right? Okay. What else? Who's got one?
I don't want to stay unmotivated.
I don't want to stay unmotivated. That's a great example. So flip that into the positive. What is it like?
I'll do something that I'll do one small step and see. I mean, I have to do something, anything, just and somehow get motivated.
Okay, so take action, right? So it's we're talking about kind of the way you word it, right? And it's all in the language, the way that you talk to yourself. So it's not I don't want to stay unmotivated. It's I want to be motivated, right? So you turn it from I don't want something to I do want something, right? And it gives you a direction. It gives you a way to go, right? Even it may not. We're not talking about the whole solution to everything. We're just focusing in on how you word those things to yourself. Make sense? Anyone else?
I don't want to remain stagnant.
Okay. So if you flip it, what does it turn into?
I need to work towards my passion.
Or do something different.
So
yeah, in a sense, I guess.
So Shelley, tell me, when you say the first statement, say it back to us one more time.
I don't want to remain stagnant.
Okay. Tell me how that kind of feels in your body. What does it feel like?
In my body, I feel stuck.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of bogged down.
Like a large weight. Like it's like I don't know, when you watch shows like fitness videos and they throw the extra weight on you that you don't actually have, or if you have to pull one of those tires, you're just pulling around a lot of load.
Okay. So flip it. What was it again?
The flip would be to, I guess, in addition to work towards my passion, also working on myself and my anxiety, pushing past my barriers of fear to get towards my passion would be a better way to
Right.
phrase that.
So you notice how as soon as you start thinking about it, the spiral starts to happen. You start coming up with solutions, you start coming up with options, and that broadening starts to happen. Your brain starts to think more broadly, right? You immediately started kind of building on it. You're like, oh, it's not just that. I can also do this. I can also do this. It happened very quickly. Sometimes it's not that quick. Sometimes it takes time, right? But it is a different state that you're in. And can you tell us, how does it feel in your body when you describe it that way?
I can't say there's an immediate reaction, but it does feel a little more clear, kind of putting the words to it, like a better emotional vocabulary towards the actions that needs to take place.
Yeah. Cool. So there's also a physiological response to these emotions. You know, if you're carrying a tire, maybe it's like a smaller tire.
Maybe 5 pounds.
but it begins to go in that direction, right? So, you know, I encourage you guys to, whenever you think I don't want something, you know, I don't want to be fat, you know, or I don't want to always be late. That's me, right? I don't always want to be late. So instead of, God, why am I so late? I'm always late. I'm just a late kind of person. You know, I can flip that into, I want to be on time. I don't have to come up with the whole solution to how I'm going to be on time. It's just that tiny shift in gear. It's not, I don't want to be late. It's, I want to be on time. And as soon as I say, I want to be on time, my brain goes, oh, how are you going to be on time? What are you going to do? How can you do that? And it starts going in that direction. It's just a different path. And it feels good. So your body, your brain is going to want to feel more good. So it will encourage you to keep doing it. So one of the most effective tools for inducing positivity is having a gratitude practice of some sort. Gratitude, minimize this. Gratitude is something you feel when you have been the recipient of someone or something else's positive actions. I think we all know what that experience is like. You can cultivate it. You can be grateful. It doesn't have to be something enormous that happens to you, like getting a raise or getting a job or, you know, getting the perfect photograph or whatever it is. It can be small, right? And you can induce it. You can begin to be grateful for pretty much anything. I have this little red ball in my little stress ball thing. Like, I could spend some time being grateful for this. You can make it happen, right? I'm not necessarily going to do that right now, but you know, I am grateful that I have this like fun little toy that I can like throw around. And that small shift, even though it seems tiny, is a way of, you know, it's kind of like lifting a few pounds. You're not going to lift 10,000 pounds, right? But you lift a little bit at a time. And the more you do it, the stronger you get. You create that upward spiral. You enhance the experience. It becomes more enjoyable. So you experience positive emotions. And if you're able to recognize that positive emotion, you feel better about it, which makes you more likely to recognize more and to have more gratitude, which makes you feel better, which gives you more gratitude, and so on and so forth. And you know what, I was kind of joking about this ball thing, but as soon as I said that, I was like, I've never really like appreciated this little thing that I was like, kind of playing with, and stress relief, and now I'm kind of like feeling a small percentage better. Seriously. So and research shows that those who have a gratitude practice or who have the character strength of gratitude tend to have more life satisfaction. They also tend to be more pro-social and other-centered, because if you think about it, that emotion of gratitude is so powerful. It will help you connect to other people. When you feel grateful, you're more likely to want to reach out. You're more likely to feel, well, your body is releasing oxytocin, which is this feel-good drug, basically, and you want to connect to other people. You want to give somebody a hug, you want to call your friend or your family. So, and you can't feel grateful and spiteful at the same time. You just can't hold those two things at the same time. It's really difficult. So if you're feeling shitty for whatever reason, pardon my language, you just start writing things down that you're grateful for. It's really hard to get out of that mode, but just think of, the small thing that's in front of you, like, why am I grateful for this? The second you do it, you'll start going in the other direction. The second you do it. Also, you get better sleep and you have more vitality, more energy. As we talked about, there's that kind of piggy bank that you deposit and withdraw from on a regular basis. Gratitude is a great way of bringing energy to your day. If you're feeling down, just start thinking about things you're grateful for. You're going to gain energy from that and probably sleep better. In a future module, we'll talk more about sleep and some of the physical benefits. And of course, more optimism. You start seeing the world as a place of opportunity and where positivity is available. You believe things are going to go well. And that doesn't mean you stick your head in the sand and forget about all of the bad things. It just means you focus more, prioritize positivity. So it creates upward spirals, it increases positivity, it enhances everyday experiences and enables you to savor experiences. Savoring is kind of mindfulness plus appreciation, basically. So you recognize something and then you take the time to allow yourself to experience the positive emotion. So if somebody sends you a card, let's say, this is kind of a common thing. You get a card, I don't know, birthday card or a holiday card, and you go, oh, okay, that's nice. You throw it away. You're like, that's great. But if you took just a second to read it and go, these people took the time to put this in the mail. Maybe it was 1 second, but they thought about me. They considered me. And then like, oh, they took these pictures. Like, they look so happy. I'm so glad that they're happy. All these little tiny things that you can build on to savor and allow yourself to experience those positive emotions. Again, research shows it's tied to greater life satisfaction. This isn't me making things up because it sounds pretty. It's because it works, and there are very, very smart scientists who are studying this stuff and proving that that's what makes life worth living. It also, gratitude is something to counter the hedonic treadmill. So the hedonic treadmill, related to materialism, this idea that you always want something else. The grass is always greener on the other side, for example. If you take a second to look at your grass and appreciate it, it's less likely that you're always going to want somebody else's grass on the other side. It's like that dangling carrot in front of you that you always want to chase, that you can never get. That's that hedonic treadmill, hedonistic treadmill. And it also decreases social comparison. Grass is always greener, so you don't necessarily go, oh, keeping up with the Joneses. You don't necessarily want what they have. You like what you have. You want what you have already. You have it and you still want it, right? And it brings down stress, of course. So let's see, how much time do we have? We have 10 minutes. Let's see, is that enough time for this? Yeah, let's do this real quick. I'm gonna do breakout groups, put you guys in groups. If you're not, the thing is, all right, let's try this out. I don't know if everybody is actually actively participating. So let's see how I can do this. All right, so the activity is you're gonna go with a partner and just back and forth like ping pong. You're gonna say things you're grateful for, just for a minute. And you'll start to notice the spiral. All right. Whoa. That's not it. Participants, breakout groups. Sorry, technical hurdles here. Oh, here we go. All right, so I'm gonna put you in these little breakout groups, and if it's not working, Clint said, and if your grass has dog poop in it, it's okay because it's actually fertilizer. Positive thinking. Yes, I like it. And thank you, Shimon, by the way. All right, I'm gonna put you guys in these groups. Send me a message if it's not working, or do the hand raise thing. All right, we'll just take 2 minutes each. Ready, go. Oop. A couple people are disappearing. Well, that makes it a little easier. Okay, ready, go. Clint, sorry, you're not in a group, huh? Let's see. How do I do this? Okay, let's do it, you and I, if you're up for it. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm not sure, there's a little glitch, so for some reason, I don't know. You want to do the ping pong real quick? Oh, wait. Unmuted. Okay. Ready? So, things you're grateful for, back and forth. All right. I'm grateful for this webinar. I can't hear you.
Okay, so I'm going back and forth my phone. Is there an echo?
Nope.
Okay, you're good. I'm grateful for health.
I am grateful for how much water I drank today.
I'm grateful for being able to walk on 2 legs in New York City.
I'm grateful for the small amount of snow that fell today.
I'm grateful that my dog was able to enjoy that snow. She enjoyed it very much.
I am also grateful for the exact same thing, and I'm grateful to see how cute she is when she eats the snow.
Oh yeah. I'm grateful for you know the being fortunate enough to buy and eat food every day.
I'm grateful for the gym that I go to.
I'm grateful for a wife that loves me very much and that relationship that we have.
I am grateful for the talk that I had with my dad last night.
That's nice. I'm grateful for my realtor finally finding someone that will put an offer in and buy our house after 6 months. We just moved here, by the way. So our house in Texas has been for sale for a while.
Oh, wow. Oh, well, welcome. Awesome. We have, okay, so a couple of people are popping back in.
Thank you. I'm going to mute you now.
Okay, cool, man.
I'm going to mute.
All right. So Joe and Ganesh are back. Did you guys get a chance to go back and forth? Yes?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was just unmuting everybody so we can share. I'm just gonna, all right, unmute everybody. Is it working? Okay. Everybody should be coming back now. Okay. A few people have had to go early, so we're just going to wrap up. So real quick, what are your takeaways? What are you taking away from today's chat?
Thinking.
I think, well, I was actually, if Lydia doesn't mind, I was going to call her out. She made a great comment during our chat. I don't know if she wants to share.
Is that okay, Lydia?
No, yeah, that's totally fine. What I shared was, this past week, I've been going through a lot of negativity. Just because there's just a lot of drama happening in my life right now. But what I'm grateful for is actually just out of nowhere, I just got a notice. It says Meetup. Would you like to join this group? And I'm so happy. When I signed up, I thought it was for something else. But I'm so happy that it's about this. It's about dealing with your emotions. It's about looking at a different way in which you can handle your emotions and what you're going through. So I'm actually very grateful for the course. So it came sort of out of the blue, but obviously it was meant to be.
Fantastic. Yeah. Anyone else? What are you learning from this? What has been useful to you?
I believe like doing the negative positive emotion, I think it says something that you could really look at everything positive way.
Right. So negative emotions are not even necessarily bad. They are just part of being human.
Danny, this is Clint. Can you hear me?
Yes, Clint.
I just like I mentioned in our back and forth, just moved here not too long ago from Texas on account of my wife's job relocating us. So I've been in transition with work, and even with experience, I thought it would be a little easier jumping in and picking up and finding a job. I'm finding that it's a little more time consuming and difficult. So, it's easy to get discouraged through that process. And when you're trying to do it alone and apply and meet people and network, you can go through times of a discouraged feeling. So I think that this has been really good to make sure that you in fact psychologically put yourself in a positive place, and it's just good to experience that with everyone here. So thank you for putting this together and everyone else as well.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Clint. Yeah, anything else? And I know it's already 8:01, so but if you have something to share, please let us know.
I don't have anything to share. I think what everyone said, I agree with. But I think you mentioned there was a previous course. I don't know if there's going to be future courses. How do we find out that information? Because similar to Lydia, I kind of stumbled upon this. I don't know how, so I don't really know where to get additional information.
Yeah, for sure. And I love the serendipity of, people just kind of stumbling across this. Okay, so to your first question, yes, this is a 16 module resilience training program that I'm running through Meetup. Right? So if you want to register and get the notifications for the future courses, of which there are still 14, I would love to have you. They're going to be, the next one is about a physical type of resilience, and then it's social resilience, and then again, mental, emotional, physical, and social, and just kind of at a higher level, and they just kind of keep going deeper and deeper, and they build on each other. But it's okay if you miss one and you're not there or whatever. They're not prerequisites. You can't actually watch the lectures, you have to be present. So basically we're treating this as if it's a meetup in person, and if you want to attend, you got to be there, kind of thing. With the small exception that I'm going to put the recording up of the previous session for a week or two, just in case if you're really into it and you really wanted to be there but you couldn't. I don't want to punish anybody. So for just a small window, I'll put up the recording. But of course, it's not the same, if you watch a recording versus passive participation versus active participation. So long answer to your question. So Meetup.
Do we find it by your name? Do we just look by your name?
Let me put a link right now to, if you go to meetup.com and you search for, so let's do this one. This is the one that I'm, so it's actually two meetups because I'm making some changes in my business and focusing more on photographers because that's my background. But of course, this applies to everybody, and it has nothing to do with photography as a technical practice or anything. It's just that idea of resilience. Here is the link, so you can sign up for this. Yeah, so it's called Full Frame Coaching. That's me. And right, so that's my business. It's the current website, which will be changing soon to Full Frame, is groupcoaching.com, which I just added to the chat box. And happy to answer any questions. You can email me. You can send me a message through Meetup. I'm always happy to chat because I love this stuff. So why not? Any other questions? Anything else? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Thank you for sharing this knowledge with us and your experiences.
My pleasure. Thank you all so much, and hope to see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.